and there is a lot of sexual chemistry. We didn't have sex.
Welcome back here with Goldberg. Today I want to talk about this video by Busy Becoming Myself, who is a PUA and life coach. Why I stayed in a sexless marriage for 7 years in my 20s, unscripted. I was going to do the subject of unconditional love, but I wanted to get on this before I forget. It also has some relevance to that subject matter, but in the future we'll talk about the former idea. I'm not going to play too much more of the video just because of copyright issues, but let's delve in because he has some very fascinating insights as to what can happen if you get engaged with a union so early on in life. So he starts out by noting he was raised to have low self-esteem, appears to be a very overbearing mother who would punish him for defying her will. His mommy is from South Asia. When I heard that, I already knew, okay, pretty much over. Rarely do South Asian women allow their sons to grow up with self respect. You are out of the box meant to be a good beta provider, work extremely hard, focus on school, make tons of money so that you can trade that for a wife one day, but she's going to rule over your existence. On the opposite side, I guess his father was from the UK, white dude. Now, would that be for the ethnicity? Would that be Caucasian or maybe Cornish hen? You guys tell me, I'm not sure. But high standards, he has to work hard in academics, driven, cannot be subpar. And this has the effect of stunting his social development. So he says he didn't have much of a reference point when it comes to a healthy relationship with a woman because he didn't date much at all. And this is true. Even if you're decent in terms of appearance, your parents can do this, whether they think they're protecting you or maybe they're resentful, they don't want you to have opportunities, they are just whatever it might be. There's a lot of different factors where the people you grow up with who are raising you can actually do that in a damaging fashion. And so, yeah, the mother having a stranglehold on life, the father being kind of aloof, this is the sort of thing which is almost guaranteed to occur. So he grows up a bit. At the age of 16, he becomes a Christian. As we know, most sects of Christianity, really Abrahamic faiths in general, they do not ordain men with positive traits as far as masculinity is concerned. They are more intent on making you that dedicated, self sacrificing goober who will serve a woman even if she has a checkered past, because you're supposed to turn the other cheek. You don't judge until you've taken the plank out of your own eye. One might make the argument, looking at Joseph as a figure, if that's your role model, Joseph was the guy who stayed. He was there to help her carry this burden. I know that's going to offend some folks, but you have to recognize, unless you're going with the old fathers, really trad Christianity, most of these churches, like frankly most Islamic mosques, world religions at all, for the most part, are going to teach this sort of mentality. And so he is at his first job. He does not have a kiss until he's 22 years old, but he beat out Elliot Rodgers, so that's something to talk about. The girl he's dating is giving him a lot of these drama queen style ultimatums, tests, but he feels no one else wants him, and so he allows himself to get manipulated into the marriage. This happens to more guys than you might imagine. If you don't have enough experience, if you haven't dated before, there could be an issue. And he says they didn't have sexual intercourse or congress before marriage. But once they, in fact, get together, what happens? Well, a few weeks later, she begins withdrawing from sex, and it gets to a point where he's essentially getting nothing. His response, as a good Christian man should do, is that he starts trying to address her issues. He says she's too tired from her commute, so he moves them closer to her job. He buys her nice clothes, he takes her out on dates, and it just continues going south until she runs away to Vegas. They have a messy divorce. They have sex once during the process, and she said, "Oh, it's great, but it still doesn't seem to matter." So it's a classic example of, you need to make more efforts to win her over once you're already married, and then she'll actually fall in love with you time and time again. But it just didn't pan out for this guy. And so now At the end of the video, he discusses how he has a notch count in the 2 digits, and he still is looking for intimacy. He doesn't want that sex to be traded freely, but he wants to give it to the right and deserving person, as many men are still trying to find, and maybe never will, in their overall lifespan. What struck me as I viewed related content to the initial video is how frequent this phenomenon appears to manifest in the lives of men. So, Man of Legacy here claims that as long as both partners are on board with it, a sexless marriage is not a big deal. But realistically, how many men are going to be cool with it? I'm not just saying you tell yourself that on the internet because it makes you feel better. Unless you have Yogi Zero Abs levels of testosterone, you're going to want to clap cheeks semi-regularly, if not more. It's your prime directive. And he proceeds to go, well, we can't just blame women because men have to be doing the work and taking them out on dates and being a good provider. But that's exactly what our friend in the former video was trying to do. And he's a lot younger, by the way. And she just didn't care because she was indifferent. We'll discuss exactly why that might be at the end of this particular segment. But just happened on this channel and have subscribed. I was in a sexless marriage for just over 20 years. The ex-wife who claimed to be Christian was the one who lost interest, despite me trying to please her in as many ways as I could possibly imagine. Counseling did not work, and it got to the stage where she wouldn't even kiss me. Finally admitted she can do better. Yeah, that I ate like a pig, and finally she detested me. She made me look clean and unworthy. But they won't leave for 20 years because a good Christian man till death do us part. You don't have to get upset. This is not trying to rant against a particular religion, but it is the way you tend to be raised, that if they're doing something that is immoral or being corrupt or being manipulative, you have to be the guy who supplicates and corrects because there's some error in your ways. That is the reason for her decision to subject you to such abuse. Here's another one. I ended up in a sexless marriage, sex about 5 or 6 times in 8 years. Let that sink in. 5 or 6 times in 8 years. And we go around trying to mock TFLers and inkwells. It's just fascinating. We met at church, so she wanted to wait. We waited for 2 years and then married. I was 25. Already had a house and car and business. She was a chameleon and changed right after the wedding. When I confronted her about this, her exact reply was, I acted that way during dating, or you wouldn't have married me. Bingo. I should have had the marriage annulled right there, but being a Christian man, at the time I tried to be long-suffering, it got worse. The following months and years, I worked full-time and part-time job. I cooked and did the housework and yard work. She quit her job and went from 130 pounds to almost 300 pounds in the first 18 months. I tried to go to counseling, but that did not work, and even the counselor agreed that they should get divorced. These are heartbreaking stories because what you'll always hear is, well, you did something wrong, you bad man, you're not putting enough effort, you're entitled, you're a narcissist. But these dudes appear to, if we can trust what they say, and it didn't matter. Why doesn't it matter? Yet again, I just celebrated my 49th anniversary and I am totally defeated. We have not only had a sexless marriage, but the last 4 years it has been celibate. That is brutal. So this guy's probably in his 70s, and he's been enduring it for decades. I have all the classic signs of frustration mentioned here, but I made a commitment to remain faithful, hoping it would mean something to her. It hasn't. I resorted to fapping, and though I really don't enjoy it, I had to in order to achieve some sense of sexual satisfaction. My wife tries to berate me and guilt trip me because we view it as sinful. That is such a typical woman moment. I won't touch you sexually, but you're a sinner if you fap. What else can you do, folks? I am prepared to resign all posts and go into retirement somewhere to spend more time with my non-existent family. This is just totally brutal. Now, I wanted to go back for a second to the video at the beginning because there's different takes on this. Some people say, well, it disproves looks. Now, this is a very good angle for him to be in, the light and whatnot, and at least he takes care of himself. He didn't just turn into some hairline going its own way type MGTOW on the internet. This is a more accurate look. You know, even though he's half South Asian, he didn't come in too strong, but you see some of it there. Like I said, he is the type of guy, he's probably a decent human being. He's probably better than most people, and that's why he stuck around. That's why he was trying to make it work, because that's how you're brought up, especially in Christian faiths, but society in general. I don't want to seem like I'm attacking Christianity because I'm not. You have to realize, why do women do that withdrawal thing? Why do they take away intimacy? It's not because you're doing something wrong. 99% of the time, they withdraw intimacy because it is in a long process, and you can read F. Roger Devlin, you can read Michelle Langley if you want more information on it, which you should if you want to avoid a mistake of this nature. They're doing it because it's part of a broader scheme to shake you off. Women don't like being the ones who tell you, I'm ending the relationship. They like to create a set of conditions, like I talked about in the Muslim cell video. You can be married to a woman, but she can be a dead fish. She can gaslight you. She can try to abuse you, give you the silent treatment. She does this because if she isn't already cheating or she's looking to trade up, she wants you to feel so bad, so frustrated, so miserable, so unloved that you end the relationship, and then she'll go around saying, oh, see, he didn't fight for me. He's the abuser. I was so in love and he wouldn't do what was necessary to keep us intact. That is precisely what's going on here. And so the looks factor, like I said, if you are the type of guy, this is really high tier normie, they can just see you as prey, especially if you don't know much about women. But more to the point, this is not really your fault. It's the fact that they're seeing it in a much longer horizon. He's going to have to get rid of me. I'll still get money. I'll be supported and I can go on to another guy. But you're not going to come back from it. If you happen to be a good Muslim boy, Hindu boy, Christian boy, you're married in your 20s or 30s, and the girl starts withdrawing intimacy from you, there is a very simple answer to that question. And it is to say, immediately begin siphoning money from your account, put it in a hardware Bitcoin wallet, get cash, store that at your parents', in a coffee can behind the drywall, in that lockbox buried somewhere deep inside Georgia Free's ass. You have to have a plan because there's no coming back from it. And if you accept that behavior, even if she maybe turns on the spigot a little bit, it will always be manipulation and she will lose respect with you. More than likely, you'll end up getting cucked if you haven't already. Some things people just can't see because of the perspective which they've adopted. I'll just give you an example. Maybe it's too lighthearted, but Goldberg was on vacation recently. I'm on this river cruise ship and the music's playing, nice jazz, everyone getting along. I see out of the corner of my eye this pretty fine-ass sister. She was in shape, skin-tight evening dress, the red hair, which I'm sure was glued on, but looked good in the moment. And she keeps taking pictures of herself or recording videos, and I'm just thinking, what would Alex playing with fire do? What would busy becoming myself do? How can I make that spark, that connection? So eventually I saunter on over and I said, are you some kind of a TikTok influencer or whatnot? She goes, tee hee, turns and smiles at me, and the gap between her teeth was like the southern border. You don't see it until you have the appropriate perspective. So, best wishes to this guy, busy becoming myself, and all those of you. Don't get trapped in this type of union. If the woman is not willing to put out, then you don't need to be putting in. You don't need to be supporting her lifestyle or giving her emotional validation, because what's the point? Your life is too short. You don't want to waste your 20s and 30s on a sack of plums that's just going to get worse and worse and eventually rotten. Just a piece of advice from your old friend, Dr. Goldberg.